I guess it should come as no surprise that the nostalgic photography movement has finally moved into the 2000s. Those of us who grew up in the 2000s loved shooting those little cheap plastic point-and-shoot style cameras, our very first encounter with digital photography. It was a very special time for many of us that consisted of proprietary cables, proprietary batteries, and proprietary memory cards, and a time when internet connectivity on your camera was a pipe dream. But that's not gonna stop us, because today on Overexposed, we're gonna talk about why I don't understand digicams. And I wanna answer a couple questions. Why are they back? And is there any real photographic merit to these old cameras? Well, back in my day, these were just called point and shoots or digital cameras. But now folks have shortened that to just digicams. The very first mention that I could find of these point and shoot style cameras being referenced as digicams was from an article by Casual Photophile. A really good website, check it out if you haven't. But after that, there have been tons and tons and tons of YouTube videos, largely from folks in the film space like myself, trying to cash in on the movement. These digicams are usually quite inexpensive. They're low resolution, very small, compact digital cameras. You can find them with some desirable qualities. There are cameras with larger sensors, nicer lenses. CCD sensors are also, I think, a desirable thing at this point as well, but largely we're just talking about simple point-and-shoot digital cameras. As digital photography became more widespread in the 2000s, loads of manufacturers jumped on board manufacturing those kinds of small, inexpensive digital cameras. Almost every major manufacturer had one. Nikon, Canon, Sony. I think we can all remember those wonderful Maria Sharapova Canon PowerShot commercials, right? Those were super cool. I think I had some sort of awakening to those commercials. And for the longest time, my family actually used a Kodak point-and-shoot camera. But there are tons of these cameras out there. Quality varies between manufacturers, and some of them had better features than others. And obviously the ones that have the more desirable features or the nicer lenses command a little more of a premium price. But on the whole, you can find these things really cheap, $25, $50. We'll give you a really cool, well-featured digicam. So on to the next question. Why are digicams popular now? And I think that you have to look at film photography. And I think for many of the reasons why film photography has came back, I think also digicams have came back. I think largely this is due to nostalgia. Considering the look of many modern cameras, I think people think of a camera, they think of a DSLR. Lots of times these point shoots have very cutesy styling. They're very small, very elegant, very simple construction. And I think that can be appealing on the face. They also offer low resolution images, and that lo-fi grainy look is something that lots of folks desire, just like analog photography. I think folks love the grain, they love the noise. I think there is an association with some sort of analog aesthetic there that people just enjoy. And I think due to a lot of those YouTube videos that have been made, these cameras are also very trendy, especially right now in this moment. I think it's very popular to use a little cute point-and-shoot camera instead of a big clunky modern SLR, or even just using your cell phone. I think it's really cool to pull out your dedicated camera. There's a nostalgic appeal there. But here we are on a film photography YouTube channel. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't compare digicams to film cameras and whether it would just be more beneficial to just shoot film. I think there are a few things that you can say for these digicams. They're probably going to be much more convenient. I know that these are different kinds of conveniences, right? You have your images immediately, just like any other digital camera. They're going to be on a memory card, maybe something proprietary Sony. Who all remembers the Memory Stick Pro Duo, right? But I think many of the advantages of modern digital cameras are present with these old digicams as well. You can just pull your little low resolution pictures from your camera, drop them into Photoshop, and then edit them from there. And that leads us to perhaps a drawback with digicams, as you are committing to that same digital workflow that many of us don't really enjoy. The output from any of these digicams are gonna be very flat or, very colorful, bright, poppy JPEG images that you're then gonna have to tweak in some sort of post-processing software. You're gonna be committing to that normal digital photography workflow where you're taking the images, pulling them off your camera, dropping them in Photoshop, and applying presets or doing whatever. So that is a very different, perhaps more convenient workflow than you would get with film photography, but there are gonna be some more significant differences between digicams and film cameras. The comparison between noise and grain. Noise on those old cameras, honestly, to me, doesn't look good. You get those weird colors, those weird artifacts that come when you're shooting in low light. Film grain is appealing in lots of situations. Lots of folks love film grain. So I don't think that's an equal comparison. So I really don't think there's much nostalgic appeal, at least to me, of digital noise versus film grain. You're also gonna be accepting some pretty crappy image quality. Depending on how far back you go with your digicam, you're gonna be lots of times shooting on low resolution sensors, And these image sensors are honestly really, really small, teeny tiny sensors. So that's something to consider as well. You may just not be cool with the image quality that you're getting from these Digicams. I oftentimes find myself dissatisfied with 35mm film is a dang sight better than a 6-megapixel Canon PowerShot image. So that's something to think about. Your output size is probably not going to be that great. You're not going to be able to blow these images up much without losing quality. And then another comparison. I think if you're shooting Digicams, the logical question I would ask is, why not just shoot a modern digital camera? In my mind, Fuji has made the ultimate tool if you want to be in this workflow. If you want a Digicam, if you want a retro film camera, just get an X100, right? Just buy a Fuji X100. It's got the film simulations built in. The images are great. Buy an X100 if this is what you want to do. The rangefinder style body, that vintage aesthetic, the cameras look great. I think if I'm considering going down the path of a Digicam, I think I'm just going to buy a Fuji X100. Obviously, your miles may vary, but that's just me. So what else is there to say about Digicams? You know, I don't want this video to come off as I'm just slamming Digicams and I don't understand why people are into the hobby. I actually totally get it. You know, you grew up in the 2000s, you want to obtain maybe some of those cameras that were slightly out of reach for you as you were growing up, or you just want to relive a bygone era. Maybe you want to buy that camera that your parents had or that your friend had when you were in high school and see what those images look like now. Totally get it. If you want to do serious photography though, so I would just ask why you wouldn't shoot film and kind of go all in on the nostalgia, right? What's cooler and more nostalgic than shooting film? So I think if that's what you're going for, is to kind of lean into that nostalgic aesthetic, I think film is the place to be. And if you're actually really serious about printing your images big and creating real photographic work, maybe just buy an X100 or one of the Fuji cameras. You know, they look fantastically vintage. They offer a wealth of features. The film simulations are really cool. And I think one of those cameras would do a lot for you in the same way that a Digicam would as well. So that's where I'm at on this. Obviously, I still love my film cameras. So let me know in the comments, have you picked up a Digicam yet? Are you thinking about it? And if I've changed your mind, why don't you just leave this video and mosey on over to this video where I point you in the direction of a good, solid film camera. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you could, before you go, if you would subscribe.